Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining today. I'm Jason Gumpert from MSDynamicsWorld.com, and we're here for a session all about EDI and e-commerce integration for Dynamics GP users. Our presenter today is Dave Malda of eBridge Connections. It's great to have him with us for the first time here. And as we get started, please know that we do hope to make this an interactive session. You should see several different poll questions throughout the session asking for your input so that Dave has some guidance, and also we'll be leaving time for questions at the end. You can enter your questions at any point throughout the session. Look for the Q&A block you should see to the right of the main presentation area, and feel free to enter those as we go. So without any further delay, I'm going to hand things off to Dave Malda to get us started. Dave.
Thank you so much, Jason, and it's my pleasure, everybody, to host this today. I hope that you find it informative, and what we've done is we've tried to distill it down into a couple of different slides with some, as Jason mentioned, we would like it to be interactive. We do have several polling questions that are going to come up as well, so that people can contribute that way, and then we'll also have a Q&A session towards the end of the slides as well. So by all means, feel free to offer those questions, and then again at the end we'll serve those up and I'll answer them for everybody. Okay, so let's get started. So again, this is really meant to show the universal integration that eBridge offers, into, in this case, GP, and I'll share with you kind of the different processes and then also some tips and common questions that come up with regards to integration. So a little bit about myself. My name's Dave Malda. I've worked here at eBridge for about 8 years. It's a fantastic space to work in. There is a lot of moving parts, probably as most of the people that are listening to me know, and it can be challenging. It can be some awesome challenges, that we run into, where people are looking to push data from many different sources, whether it's an e-commerce platform, it could be an EDI trading partner, or it could be maybe a Salesforce.com or a Dynamics CRM source. So lots of challenges, but certainly a very imperative part of the process where this data needs to make its way back and forth in a timely manner to keep things moving forward for a business, and to be able to do it effectively and efficiently, so that you're not scaling obviously with people manually entering in data, but you're scaling with a platform that's on a schedule that just wakes up and runs. So again, I've been here for about 8 years. I work with primarily with the sales team and fairly heavily with the marketing team as well, with Lindsay and team, who Lindsay will be jumping on later on in this presentation. So without further ado, I'll get started, and by all means, if you have questions, let's just put them. I believe there's a Q&A box or a chat box that you can share them with. So we have actually a poll coming up right now, and I'm hoping that everyone can see this on their screen, and it really is, enough about me. I'd like to know a little bit about everybody else that's listening, so it'd be fantastic if we were able to find out kind of who's on the line today. Are you an end user, perhaps looking for integration, maybe not satisfied with your current integration, or looking to plug in something new? Are you a VAR, maybe a value-added reseller that works with the Dynamics suite, or particularly with GP? Or perhaps you're an e-commerce agency that that's putting in e-commerce platforms, and I'll get into this a little bit later, the ones that we support, but that might be one, although I just see the results here and it looks like there are no agencies at the moment, which is surprising, actually. I know the bulk of our business can be e-commerce related, and obviously, so here I'll look at the results here. We've got it just disappeared on me there, but there we go. So it looks like end users 43%. That's fantastic. VARs 43%, and then web agencies, we'll get them next time. and other we've got about 14%. So thank you very much, everybody, for filling that out. That's helpful. So here are the things that that I'll be going through on this webinar. It's how to simplify the seller process with universal integration. The key here is universal integration. I'll touch on that a little bit. Then what is GP integration? Fast and accurate order processing, and then the meat of this will be the top 5 questions that GP users ask about integration. They're ones that we get all the time, and I'll walk you through what those are, and then of course I suspect there will be some others as well. So here's the buying process, if you will. I mean, typically a customer is coming to your site. You've done some marketing, hopefully you've driven traffic to your site in this example, and you're excited. I think the person buying is excited. So they click buy, and then really what happens, right? What happens after that? Well, we all know definitely in the e-commerce space that folks are looking to, at least I know I do this, I will order something and then immediately I'm looking for the tracking number. So, I'm not always mindful, and I think others are not always mindful of what actually has to happen in order for this process to work in a timely fashion. There are certain steps that need to happen. There's maybe data that needs to make its way down into GP. That data needs to make its way to a warehouse so that they can pick, pack, ship, and label the item. There's a lot of different intricacies and things that go on behind the scenes that most people are not aware of, and of course that's where we can help out. So again, inputting the item, I think end users on the line are probably familiar with the manual entry. So as you get more successful and as your clients are starting to buy more, whether it's B2B or B2C, that as you hit a threshold, with us it's typically 200 to 250 orders per month. There's a pain there, there's a need to get this data integrated. Often we'll come into situations where we can find folks that have maybe 1 or 2 full-time people that are keying things in, and it's interesting to see the success happen, and then there can be a little bit of a trip up on how much data actually needs to move back and forth, and if you're copying and pasting that, I mean, as we all know, there can be errors and things that get missed, people get sick, things get delayed, and that customer experience starts to become not as pleasing to the person that's buying the product. So now I have another poll question coming up. I know this is a GP, webinar. However, I thought it may be interesting to ask what accounting packages are folks using. I'm sure there's people on here that are maybe not using that. They might be using the new Dynamics 365. So I thought that would be a valuable question to ask folks to see what is everybody running, what accounting package or ERP do you have that needs to have the data put in back and forth. So we'll wait a couple seconds here for the results, but we have a couple here. Obviously GP is A there, and then we've got NAV, AX, SL, which we see a bit of here at eBridge. And then Dynamics 365, both operations and for financials are 2 that are coming up. So, okay, as expected, this is great. 89% GP and then 11% others. So thank you everybody for sharing that. It's interesting, to see. I'm glad that it's so focused. Actually, this is great. So what is GP integration? What does it all entail? What are the different components? What are the different pieces? Well, we do have actually a takeaway from this webinar, which everyone will get the link to. But we had written earlier in the year an e-commerce specific integration guide for dummies, and it's a very thorough guide, but basically what it'll walk through is how you can hook up your online store, your marketplace, whether it's eBay or Amazon, your CRM, whether it's Salesforce.com or Dynamics CRM, and all of your EDI trading partners. It's a very exhaustive guide. It's one that Lindsay helped us put together with the help of the 60 people, 60, that we have here at eBridge. There's a lot of knowledge here, and it's basically been packed into this booklet. So again, everyone will get the link at the end of this webinar. So to reiterate, the unique piece on eBridge is really we've been doing EDI integration for about 23 years. So our experience and our roots are in that space. But then over the last 8 to 9 years, we've branched out to e-commerce, and you can see a couple of points there. Amazon, fulfilled by Amazon FBA, and then there's also the non-FBA, which is fulfilled by the merchant. There's Shopify, Shopify Plus, WooCommerce, and again, these are just some of the different things that we support through our platform. We'll basically take the data from each of these sources, and we're going to normalize it on our platform, and then we push it down into GP. Of course, there's many different versions of GP that we support, and I'll show you a handy tool right here that can really help you find out if we support your version or not. So for the end users there, again, this tool will be helpful to find out if a specific version is supported. And for the VARs out there as well, you can call us by all means, but this tool will help you, take a look at, does eBridge support a particular version of GP or any other accounting package for that matter. So we'll share the URL with this. I believe it's ebridgeconnections.com/blueprint. You can also get to it from the home screen. There's a Try Our Blueprint button, a blue button just above the fold, and that will drive you to this area here. So what's going to happen is a few things. You'll see, I'd like to integrate, and it's got a type, and I'll walk you through that in a moment, with, and then that's really the source. So what is the accounting package? What GP version are you integrating to what source, whether it's EDI or it's eCommerce or it's CRM. So selecting these drop-downs is going to present you with, in this case, we've shown a GP sort of flyout, but you'll see there we've got a couple of inbound and outbound touch points that we currently support. These are, we call them touch points, and it's really a pre-built touch point that supports standard fields and tables in GP. So here you can see on the inbound, for example, we've got an inbound sales order. It's the fourth one down. So what that defines is eBridge has built over the course of the last 23 years these touch points for each version of GP that out of the box we'll be able to hit, right? On the other side, we've got Magento. So most of you will know that's an e-commerce platform. An example here might be we're going to take outbound orders from Magento, and we're going to place those into, in this case, Dynamics GP as a sales order. Out of the box, eBridge has these touch points available, and the intention for that is obviously it's a few things, but it's to help deploy the solution faster. It's not a new build every time for us, unless there's customizations, and we'll get into that a little bit later in the webinar, but unless there's customizations, which there typically is, we can get you there fast 80% of the way with these standard touch points that are in GP. You'll see there's a bunch of touch points here. This is a very robust adapter for us. We've been doing GP for a long time. We're a Microsoft Gold partner, and this is really a culmination here of really 20 some odd years of touch points. So again, very exhaustive and a lot of experience in GP. Some of the examples here, you'll see there's a There's some ASN references, so you can see there's some, on the outbound, there's an outbound advanced shipping notice. Again, that's, if you're familiar with EDI, that's an EDI term. In this case, we're looking at e-commerce, but again, the intention here is to give you a tool so you can see if eBridge supports something or not. If it's not on this list, by all means, reach out, because there's typically, either we can build it or there's a way that, we can work with you. Now this is, I'll just back up for one sec. There's a small I icon right beside, if we look at our inbound sales order, there's a small I there. And in fact, each touch point has that small I beside it. If you were to select that I, you're going to be presented with this screen. And this is intended to, this may be helpful for the VARs and often can be helpful for the end users as well. It really shows the field level detail that eBridge supports. So it's handy when some folks don't want to peel the onion back that extensive. Others do. Others want to say, hey, listen, my client has these fields on the customer card. Do you support them? You can literally drill down on this tool to see if this is something that that eBridge supports. So again, just a handy way to find out kind of the depth out of the box that eBridge supports. So excellent. So by all means, if there's questions, please do put them in the Q&A box or in the chat box, and Lindsay and I will be happy to help answer those. So next, I was going to walk through the order process, right? So really, what happens when an order comes from a different platform? What are the different triggers that need to happen in order to be able to process this data properly into GP and then back up to, in this case, we've got a web store. So again, this is a client of ours, Everlast. You probably would recognize them. They're a fairly well-known brand. They are currently using our solution for Magento integration. There's some EDI integration as well that they're doing, but in this case, we'll show the Magento side of things. Someone's going to come in, they're going to order some gloves, and what will happen is our system, our integration platform, is going to pull on a 5 to 15 minute interval. It's basically going to pull the website to see if there's any net new orders that have appeared in the last 5 to 15 minutes. It will, in this case, pull down any open orders that need to be shipped. So you can see on the left-hand side, we're looking at the website, someone's placed an order, and then that information gets put into the e-portal. The screen's a little bit smaller there, but I think the illustration is good. It really shows it's an area that folks are going to go to, not often. You don't need to spend your time in there. It's on a scheduled basis, but folks that are running into maybe a challenge where an order didn't get processed properly for various reasons and maybe needs to be reprocessed, you would head into this area of the platform online. It's an online platform. You'd log in there to see where things are at, and there's certain statuses that are going to show up. There's pending, there's shipped, there's a few other key statuses that can be quickly identified by yourself or the end user to see if things are actually moving properly the way they should. So it will, that data will be held there. I believe it's 30 or 90 days. It does get archived after that, or if you wish, it can get completely removed as well. But it will show up in this system. And then in this case, we're showing the inbox. We've got the order that's come down. They have thousands of orders in a given month. Well, this will get processed down into GP. Now, depending on the version of GP you're running, there are two products. One is eBridge on the cloud, which is really just a small utility that will reside on the server where GP is hosted. Or we do have, for an older version of GP, if you're running a much later version, we do have we call it a bridge install, that gets installed on premise, and that helps with all the different components, the mapping and the data translation, et cetera, that happens. So in this case, the order is going to get passed into GP, and then we're going to, we can work with the client to get those orders to a 3PL, or if they're drop shipped, or if there's, an internal warehouse, that's being used. We can work together, either sending 940s or 945s to and from the warehouse. In some cases, it's already set up and not needed, or they may have access to GP and they're able to just see the pick list. So what we're illustrating here is we've got the order picked, packed, and shipped. There's a label that's been put on the box. And then, again, on a 5 to 15-minute interval, 1-5 interval, our portal is basically going to wake up and pull any shipped items back up to our platform, including, in this case, the shipping details and the tracking number. And then that will, in turn, make its way back up to, in this case, it's the Everlast, account for the customer, so they can see that their package has been shipped, and obviously that helps keep, the customer at ease, knowing that things have been shipped. So the last thing I'd like to touch on is the top 5 questions that we typically get from GP users, or even just users in general, that are looking, to integrate their systems. And so I'll walk through those now. And again, if you have any questions, or if there's something here that you don't see, by all means, please do ask. I touched on this a little bit earlier, but I think the order volume is something that really determines if integration is needed or not. So for an online store, for an e-commerce platform, we see anywhere from 200 to 250 orders in a given month is really something that triggers people to say, listen, I can't keep up here. I can't scale with people. I need to get a solution that's automated, that I can set on a schedule, that regardless of the time of day, it's basically going to pull and keep things moving forward to and from the source, whether it's EDI or whether it's eCommerce or CRM, into GP and back and forth. So on the e-commerce side, it's typically 200 orders to 250. I would say on the EDI side, as most of you know, if you've done EDI, or if you've been requested to do EDI, it's really not an option. There's a couple of ways. If it's low volume, there's a few ways where you can perhaps get a web form solution. If you're doing a couple of orders a month, it doesn't necessarily need to be integrated and can probably be handled manually. But again, if those trading partners start ordering more and that volume goes up, then you're going to run into this same issue where you simply can't scale properly, so you need a platform. Again, there's a few other points here, so I think scaling your business across multiple channels is one that we are seeing every day. There are new folks coming in requesting new marketplaces in the e-commerce space primarily that they're going to be selling on, and it might be jet.com, it could be Amazon, it could be eBay. There's some that we have not heard of. It could be Alibaba. There's really a lot of different types of marketplaces that we run into over the course of a business day here. So that's a key one. eBridge can really handle any channel or marketplace or EDI trading partner that needs to be plugged in. So there's an advantage there of not having to maybe run 2 or 3 different systems in order to kind of accommodate all of the different data sources that that you might need to incorporate into GP. So again, that is a key one, and one that obviously we don't take very lightly here. So cost. So probably the end users are maybe thinking, what is the cost? That's a question that obviously comes up a lot. There's a couple of different components. There's really 2 different components to an eBridge solution. And really it is this way. So I had talked about a touch point earlier. I walked you through the blueprint and shown you the different pre-built touch points that we support, we have an annual fee that gets charged for each touch point. So as you add a touch point, in the case of the Everlast example, let's just say they're running a 5 touch point solution, you're looking at anywhere from $1,000 to say $1,200 for a touch point. Again, that's to run annually for the year. Then there's a second piece, which is the services. So we have a team, we have several teams here. I believe there's 5 teams of 3 that deploy our solutions. So as we move to the kickoff state and we have a project where we're doing some integration between systems, we're going to include a project manager, and we're basically going to have those folks map and deploy the different services that are needed in order to connect the different systems, whether it's EDI trading partners or it's e-commerce. So there's really 2 components. It's simple. However, there are customizations often that can be surfaced as we go through and we scope the job, and we would treat those obviously separate outside of what you're seeing here. So having a full understanding of what pieces require eBridge is sort of imperative as we go through the sales cycle. And there's a couple of different ways that my team is able to uncover that information. It's through technical calls. There's typically a few technical calls, and then there's also a demo that we typically provide where, again, if there's multiple people involved in this process at a particular company, which there typically is, you can, each person can kind of raise concerns or say, well, we do it this way. We use SalesPad maybe. There's a few different things that we'll learn as we go through the cycle, and obviously that does impact the price. So the next question, the next most popular question would be, how long does it take? So I would say in my experience here over the last 8 years, what I've noticed is when there's a point of contact at the company where we're doing the integration, that can really expedite things, and here's why. Our service people are going to have questions that come up over the course of the deployment, and the speed to getting answers to those questions, the speed to maybe getting credentials or even access to the different platforms so that we can start to move the data back and forth is key. Often delays can happen in that process if there's nobody on the other end that really is sort of leading the charge with the project. So that really is a key one. And when we have that, it can be relatively straightforward depending on, again, customizations or even touch point level. If you're running a 6 or an 8 touch point solution, obviously the deployment timeline can get a little bit longer. But if it was a 3 or a 4 touch point solution, and we have a point of contact at the company, sometimes you're looking at a 2 to a 4 week turnaround. It can be relatively fast, and the revs can be short. In an EDI case, most of you that have done EDI are familiar with the testing window, and sometimes there can be some delays from the trading partner where you're waiting on a testing window. Maybe you do a test, right? We send a test over. If there's certain issues and it needs another rev, again, sometimes there's a new testing window. So those things can play factors in the deployment and how long the deployment takes, but having a main point of contact I've found is really key, and that's feedback from the team that I work with here. This question is more about so how does our solution work? Does it quote unquote sit outside, or is it really bolted on into GP? And the answer to that is it does sit outside. There are some advantages to that. It's a small service in the case of our eBridge on the cloud utility. It really is just a small service that sits on the outside, or in the case of our bridge that sits on premise for older versions of GP, it is an install, but again, it sits on the outside of GP, so nothing is really augmented or changed, in GP per se. So I know that question does come up a lot during the sales cycle, and it can be one that, where folks are more comfortable with it sitting on the outside. So, and then again, just a little bit on the inner workings of how the bridge works. There are different business rules and this business logic that are in the different components that we deploy. So things like selling eaches online, or maybe cases online. Sorry, you have cases online, but you have eaches in GP. Those different types of transformations of data would happen through these business rules. So this we have it as number 5, but this often can be a very early question that gets asked, and it's one that I think is key. As people are deploying, what we're finding is folks will start out with a bit of a smaller implementation where maybe we're doing 1 or 2 touch points. It may look something like this where they've got Magento orders, they've hit maybe 150 or 180 orders per month, and they really just want to get those orders down in a timely fashion so they can get them to the warehouse. Some people will start with a 1 or a 2 touch point solution. They may start with bring the orders down, and then let's have the tracking number go back up. The great thing with eBridge is you can bolt on different touch points relatively easily after the fact. So again, people want to keep low risk. They'll run the solution. They'll run it with 2 touch points. Once they're happy, they're going to say, listen, eBridge, can you add inventory quantities to this, please? Or I have another trading partner I need to bring on board. Can you please add this trading partner? Or I have another platform that I'm selling on. We're currently testing Amazon FBA, and I'd like to add that as well. So easily adding those is a relatively key component to selecting eBridge, and we've got it highlighted in red here. It is universal, and that means really we can plug in all of those different sources, and nothing really changes down on your GP. We're really just bringing in new orders from different sources, for example. So again, if there's any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box. Happy to answer those. This really is, again, just reiterating the point that multiple sources going into Dynamics GP. We'll send this to you after. It is the integration, the e-commerce integration dummies book that I had mentioned. There's the link to it. So feel free to copy that right now, or I believe Lindsay's going to send that after the webinar's over as well. This is a little bit about eBridge. I mean, I've sprinkled in and through this webinar kind of who we are and what we've done and how long we've been around, but it's important, I think, to pause here. We're not a startup. We are not new to this business. We've been around for a long time, since 1993. A lot of experience in the Dynamics suite in Microsoft, for example, and in particular GP. We do have 60 employees here, 60, and they're all in-house, so nothing is outsourced. It's all built and maintained and supported here at eBridge. And why that's key is I can, Lindsay and I interact obviously daily. I interact with all of the departments daily, and you're literally just walking down the hallway here. So that's a real key in this business, because we're sitting in the middle of 2 production systems, and speed to either a fix or speed to deployment is important, and we find it works best when we're all here within these 4 walls. So you'll see on the blueprint there's a point there that says universal connector for over 40 accounting packages and ERPs. That's really that blueprint builder. That's something that we'll follow up with the link for that as well, and it's on our main page there. You'll see it on the right. Try our blueprint builder, but that will show you the breadth and the depth that we currently support. We have over 600 businesses on our platform. There's a few, we have some case studies and obviously a few folks that we're working with in the different tiers. We have some smaller businesses that are selling online, that are selling on Amazon. We also have some mid-market businesses that are also selling online and doing EDI, and then we've also got some larger companies like an Etel Pasta or John Deere as well. So here's just a sample of, again, all of the different EDI trading partners, marketplaces that we support, and then again, some of the different ERPs and accounting packages that we support. So at this point, I'd like to pass this over to Lindsay, and we did have a couple of questions come in, which is fantastic. I'm happy to answer those, and I'm also happy to, obviously, after the webinar, if there's any questions that come up, or as you kind of debrief and have this information kind of sink in, I'm happy to help. I've got my email address here as well. So Lindsay, I'll pass it over to you for those questions.
Great. Can you hear me all right, Dave?
Absolutely. Crystal clear.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, and hi, everyone. I'm Lindsay Hampson. I'm over in the marketing department at eBridge. I'm sitting just down the hall from Dave. It's nice to see some familiar names on the line and some new ones, too. So there's a bunch of questions I'm going to ask, 4 or 5, depending on the time here. I've got another 10 minutes or so. All right, Dave, here's the first one. It's do you have any customer examples?
Yeah, great question. So I walked through a few there, but you know, I would say a really good example is one that, and not that the other ones weren't really good, they were. This one is fantastic in the fact that they're doing multiple, 20 plus EDI trading partners. There's some warehouses involved, and then there's multiple e-commerce platforms they're selling on. It's a company named Corvin. Great company. They basically sell a pour by the glass wine adapter. It sits over top of a wine bottle, and you're able to basically pour a glass and then put that wine bottle back on the shelf and not spoil it. So they have this little product that does this. It's really cool. And so they've gone from being a smaller kind of a startup company a couple of years ago that had a Magento site and then was starting to sell into Bed Bath & Beyond, and there was a few other trading partners they were selling to. And they've really gone global. So they were in the U.S., they went to Canada, they went to Quebec, they went to, I believe they're now over in Asia. They've really ballooned, and eBridge was able to basically manage all of the different data sources that they've passed to us. So the name, again, it's Corvin, and they've got a Magento Enterprise, a couple of different Magentos they're running. They have an open cart that they're running, which is an e-commerce platform, and then they also have, I believe it's 15 to 20 EDI trading partners. So it really kind of brings home the universal connector, so the ability for eBridge to pull from multiple sources. And then kind of the fourth thing they do is they also have a bunch of warehouses that are sprinkled throughout the world as well, and we're able to send 940s, 945s, and different information to those different locations. So
Great. Thanks, Dave. I'm going to put a Corvin wine opener on my birthday list. It's coming up soon. All right, the next question was all about, it's from a VAR, and it's what happens when my client wants to upgrade their ERP?
Yep. Yeah, that's a great question. So let's take the example of I'm upgrading on GP. What would happen in that case is eBridge has a product that is backwards compatible. So if the version, if we're jumping up, a relatively small version, if you will, the product's going to be backwards compatible. So what does that mean? Well, that does mean that works best when the client says, listen, we're upgrading, and they give us the heads up, they give our support team the heads up. We're able to prepare for that. As you know, when upgrades happen, things can break, right? So if we have the heads up, we'll give our team here time to basically schedule in, okay, it's updating on this date, and then there's going to be some testing that may be involved if, for example, if something does break, which it can, there's some testing that may need to happen, and then usually it's a tweak to get things going. But again, depending on how big of a jump, if you're really coming from an old version of GP to maybe the latest, that could be a situation where we'd probably need to sit down and have a chat. If it's a smaller version upgrade, then typically it works seamlessly. So I hope that answers your question, and certainly if it doesn't, feel free to reach out, and I'm happy to expand on that.
All right, the third question is, it seems like it's coming from an end user, and it says, we're considering potentially building this in-house, but we're also considering an integration provider. So can you give me some tips?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a really good question. In fact, often what can happen is we will, we can sometimes in the sales cycle compete with those types of conversations, right? Where someone's saying, hey, listen, I want to keep this in-house. I think we can build it ourselves. And, what's the advantage of eBridge? My hope was that as I walked you through the blueprint builder, and hopefully you go to it afterwards and you're able to sort of browse it, you'll see that the advantage of bringing it to eBridge is we, out of the box, have you 70 or 80% of the way there. So what does that mean? Well, that means if you're running Magento, for example, eBridge within a relatively short period of time can take your Magento order, a standard order, and bring it through our platform down into GP to a standard order, I would say in a couple of days, if not a day. So that can happen very fast. If you were to build this yourself, right, you're basically building it custom. You are going to be dependent on the different people that are sort of managing it there in-house. And with eBridge, we can, we've got people here that support this product that are able to step in if there's a challenge or an issue. And again, we're able to deploy you out of the box with most of the standard functionality almost immediately. So working through the customizations is where a lot of the detail is. But again, you're passing it to eBridge, we're taking it, we're running with it. We have a support team here of 5 people in-house. It's 24/7 support, so we're able to help out, and we really take that headache away, right? Do we have folks that do it themselves? Absolutely we do. Sometimes they come back and say, you know what, we hooked up Magento into GP, that worked great, now we need Amazon, now we need eBay, now we need Jet.com or Walmart.com, right? And they start to realize that it really is something that is an ongoing project, and you need to be prepared for that. Or, obviously you can source it to us, and we'll simply just plug in the new platforms that we already support. So, does that answer the question?
Yep, definitely, Dave. All right, last one. There's actually a few more, but we're going to end with this last question, and we'll get back to everyone over email for the others. The last one is just about, Dave, is there a way where we can go on and check what connectors eBridge has already built?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think what Lindsay, what you and I need to do as a follow-up is send the link to that blueprint builder. The question was version, like version specific?
Yep, that's exactly right, Dave.
I think, so what we should do is maybe we can send just a small, just a short email that says, here's the blueprint, here are the 2 or 3 steps you need to take in order to see if we support your version. And by all means, if you don't see it in the list, absolutely feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help. And there really isn't a lot that we don't support. So happy to help. And I think, Lindsay, you and I should maybe just put a little sample step, here's the 2-3 steps you need to take for the blueprint builder in order to find out what version, and if we support it.
Great. Well, that's all the questions over here. Jason, I'll pass it back to you.
Yeah, great. Do you see the poll? There was another polling question here. I see it on my screen. I'm hoping everybody else does, but it's what is your biggest challenge? And there's a couple of options there, and it'd be great. I've spoke of a few, but maybe there are others that people are running into that I haven't touched on.
So I did. That one was up for a while, Dave, and I brought it down a couple minutes ago.
Okay, no problem.
But I can fill you in for anyone curious. So a third of people voted for too much data entry, but almost everyone else voted for other challenges. So I am curious what those other ones would be that weren't on the list. Feel free to put them in the chat if you're inclined. We're definitely curious.
Yeah, absolutely. That's my email's up there. Mark's email is up there as well. He's our partner manager, so we're happy to. And I'm interested to see some of the other challenges that are being faced.
I also want to remind everyone on the line that we do have a very quick survey that should pop up after you depart today. It just takes 20 seconds or so to fill out and just give a bit of additional feedback of your experience today, what you thought of the session, your technical experience with WebEx. We always appreciate that feedback as well. Well, Dave, I think we are going to wrap up here. We did record today's event, so we'll be sharing that as well in the next few days. And with that, Dave, thank you so much for taking the time, and Lindsay for moderating the questions.
You're welcome. You're welcome. My pleasure.
All right. With that, we're going to end today's event. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Take care, everybody.